What's happening, everybody? This is Shane from GotRom.com, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to be strong and flexible at the same time. Stay tuned. In this video I'm going to show you how to get into your deepest middle splits. But before we get there, we have to start with the basics. I want you to grab a lacrosse ball, the hip stick if you have it, and a band, because these are some of the tools that will help this routine be the most powerful for you because they get into the deepest nooks and crannies. We're going to start with the lacrosse ball on your glutes to free up the deep hip rotators. So lay on your side, put the lacrosse ball underneath the lateral part of your hips, and just kind of massage around to see it from a different angle. You get the other side and just kind of wiggle and go hunting. You're searching for knots, trigger points, anything that feels dense and tight to the touch. Breathe and relax. Make sure that you're becoming dead weight. A lot of people don't fully relax when they're doing self-massage, when they're doing targeted tissue work. And if you don't become dead weight, then you can never really unclench and let the knots melt or get scrubbed out. You also can try different positions. Sometimes people feel a little bit better when they do this pin and stretch technique from ART or active release therapy. The next exercise that we're going to do is you're going to take the hip stick to go a little bit deeper on the lateral hip rotators. This is what I call targeted tissue work, where it's much more pinpoint, it's much more precise, and it allows you to get into the deep hip rotators a lot easier. It's ideal if I had a pillow or a foam roller or something underneath my knee. That helps my body relax more. Basically, the more contact points your body has with the ground, the more you can relax and the more effective you'll be with your tissue work. So I'm flowing pretty quickly from side to side, but if you wanted to take more time to really clean up the dark corners of your hips, then your middle splits afterwards will feel even better. As I said before, if I had a pillow under my knee, that would be even better because then my body could relax more. But if you're out in nature on the edge of a beautiful canyon, you might not have a pillow handy, so work with what you have. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the adductors using the hip stick, which is basically the holy grail of adductor releases. Because of the pinpoint nature of the hip stick, which is designed specifically for this exercise, you can release some gnarly tissue as long as you keep your hand under the handle, which allows you to steer the stick around better and gives it sort of the proper height. And then your other hand can steer the stick around to have different angles, different pressures, different vectors. And this adductor release makes your middle splits deeper than anything else that you're going to find. Also, these little micro vibrations help to break up the scar tissue that you might have in there, the gnarly deep knots. So scrub, and do little vibrations with the stick to best clean up that tissue. This is the second way to use the hip stick, where you flip it around and you put your hand on top of the short end and your leg on top of your hand. And this is a different stimulus on the adductors, but also very effective. And then you notice again, I'm using that free hand to change the vector, change the angle that the hip stick is pulling at. And this can be super intense at first. So the keys are relax your face and relax your breath. That will help you tolerate the intensity of this kind of tissue work. But if you do it right, it will make your splits super deep. Now we're going to move on and do a little bit of a band, hamstring, and adductor sequence, which is preparation for our middle splits. So I start by doing band lockouts, where I straighten my leg fully, or I'll pull the band back into me, rocking back and forth, kind of little micro bounces. And then I bring my leg out to the side to get the adductors. This is the easiest variation because the band is not as stretched as it could be, but this will help your pancake splits immensely. The next thing I do is put the band behind my head and I push my arms straight to put a maximum stretch on the band, which will make the adductor stretch even more intense. I recommend a medium green band for this exercise, unless you're a very, very tight person and you want to use a lighter band. But I think for most people, this medium green band is probably ideal. Make sure to subscribe and get both sides. So I'm switching here. Going to do the lockouts again for this hamstring. And I'm going to straighten my leg, which makes it a little bit harder. If both legs are straight, it's harder. So you do want to work your way towards having both legs straight. And then I'm going to go straight to the advanced version of the adductor stretch. On the far side of my body, I'm pushing the band away towards the canyon. I use my elbow to push away my femur, and that allows the stretch to be a little bit deeper. And then I'm flowing right into a glute stretch. Notice how I wrap the band around my neck to hold myself into a deep glute stretch position. This works on your hip external rotation and just helps to free up all of the muscles around your hips in preparation for your deep middle splits practice. Some people make the mistake of only working on the adductor muscles when they're going to do middle splits. Think, oh, middle splits is all about adductors. But really, you should be working on a lot more than just adductors. Yes, they are the priority, but you need to work on a lot of the other muscles. And here in this position, I'm putting my elbow on the ground to get more contact points, to relax more. And then I'm moving on to downward dog variations to keep working on opening up the hamstring flexibility. And then I step forward to a slightly deeper hamstring stretch, which is a little bit of ballistic stretching and other forward folding variations, pike variations. The goal of these pike positions is to be able to, over time, slowly as your hamstrings become more flexible, be able to get your legs straight and have your face touching your shins. And this will also help your front splits with the hamstring flexibility on the front leg. Then moving on to lunge stretches for the hip flexor flexibility. As I said, we want to work on all the muscles around the hip, even if the adductors are the most important ones. Notice here that I'm sort of wiggling back and forth, reaching up with my arm, getting the whole fascial line of my psoas and iliacus muscles. Being a little bit active. I'm not just passively relaxing on the ground. You can see that my back knee is off the ground, which means I'm active in these stretches, never just totally relaxed. You need to have some muscles contracting while other muscles are relaxing. From another angle, the other side, you can see that I raise my heel up on the front leg. This slightly posteriorly tilts my pelvis and gives me a better hip flexor stretch on the back leg. These are subtle tricks that I teach in my 30 and 45-day programs, and things that you'll pick up intuitively with time. And then I'm moving on to a wide angle or wide leg, wide stance forward fold, which is more middle splits prep. And again, I'm doing it loaded. To do this position, you have to be active, but you also can push your thigh away, turn your chest towards your thigh, grab one foot to stretch that side, if that side is feeling tighter for you. And then a little crow pose, nice groin stretch, hopping out into a Cossack stretch position to get more of the long adductors. Flowing to the other side. Notice that the stretching is never static. I'm shaking my thigh if I'm feeling a subtle impingement feeling. I'm wiggling, I'm moving. I'm very exploratory, very active in all of my stretching, as you should be. And finally, we get to the most powerful middle splits, which means we're going to do them loaded. Isometric middle splits so that I build strength and length. Not passive stretching here. I'm squeezing the ground very actively with my feet. and let myself sink deeper into the stretch. It's a combination of squeezing and relaxing, squeezing and relaxing. After you wiggle your way out of your deepest, most powerful middle splits, you're going to move on to the pancake splits. I like to do them loaded with my hands behind my head for more leverage on the muscles. And if you can make it to the ground with your head or your chest, you can relax into that position. But after all that deep stretching, a nice glute stretch helps to kind of renormalize the hip joint. Sometimes your hip joints are getting sort of impinged at their end ranges, and so a simple glute stretch and even a nice quad stretch as like a little bit of a finisher can tell your hip joints like, hey, it's all okay. I know we took you to extreme end ranges, but relax. It's all good. So I'll do a little bit of a glute stretch, maybe a little bit of a quad stretch to finish. This is not something that will have the biggest impact on getting into the splits, but it's an important part of coming out of the splits because you want to leave your whole routine feeling good, not hobbling like an old man. So take a couple moments to limber and stretch and kind of just make things feel normal again, because like I said, sometimes they can feel a little freaked out after doing the full side splits, especially the loaded isometric splits. So stretch those quads using the band as I am here over my shoulder. This is one of my favorite quad stretches. And after you've done a little bit of this, a little bit of the glute stretching just prior, go ahead and relax and enjoy your splits.